Columnist and TV host Sam Omatseye had a one-on-one interview for TVC Breakfast with renowned journalist and scholar Professor Olatunji Dare, who recently turned 80 years.
Our guest this morning is Professor Olatunji Dare, well-known columnist, scholar, teacher, role model in the journalism profession, and also many people will say a humanist in the Nigerian condition. Welcome you, sir, to the breakfast show on TVC.
Thank you very much, Sam. It's a privilege to be featured on your show. Thank you.
You have been an institution in this profession, and you've gone through a lot. I mean, you've mentored people, you've taught many people who have also risen to the top of the profession. Over the years, what are your major reflections when you look back over the decades about what you have done? You've been a teacher here. You've been a teacher in the United States. You've written many columns that have tweeted power and have brought sobriety to the society, and also laughter and a lot of ironies. You have done so much of that. When you look back, what are your reflections?
I feel happy in some ways. Whenever I go to any newsroom, much against my wish, I'm treated like a celebrity. I wish it were different, but I had no control over it. People greet me on the streets, young men, women, in ways that embarrass me, and I cannot explain why. And they're my former students, and I feel deeply, deeply grateful for it. I see many of them in very, very powerful positions, as you have mentioned, my former students, editors, publishers, and media entrepreneurs, and all of them, frankly, admit, all of them, with few exceptions, admit that publicly acknowledge that I've been an influence in their lives, and this makes me very, very grateful indeed. And I'm very pleased too with the way many of them are conducting themselves with a sense of integrity, with a sense of ethics, and with an ethic of public service. This I find deeply satisfying.
Yes, one of the features of your career is also being described as a satirist. How did you become a satirist?
Quite frankly, I don't know. I don't know whether I found satire or satire found me. I really can't. But it came naturally, it came useful, it came handy, and I said, well, if you can turn it out once in a while, why not use it as your platform? And that was how it became a primary tool. It's
often said that when you look at person's writing, the thing that distinguishes a writer is what they call, for want of a better word, the voice. How did you teach or navigate, that in your career, both as editor, chairman, editorial board of the Guardian, and also as a teacher? And did you learn from your own experience in finding your own voice? Because they say what writers always do is to make sure they find their own voice.
Something that has always stayed with me is this expression that if you scratch a journalist, you find a reformer. So this reformist ethic, I think, is what has always informed my journalism. To Governor Fashola's slim memograph the other day, and I find his definition of a politician, or a political figure, simple and engaging. He said the minister's task is to solve problems. Ask
Yes.
any of us. Yeah, very simple and very engaging. You are there to solve problems.
Yes.
So when you get
Problems,
that,
yes.
what are the problems? How can I solve them? What can I do to find solutions to these problems? So a journalist, what is the state of society? What are the ills of society? What can I do to mediate these ills or to cure them? I think this is what has always, what can you contribute? In other words, in some expressions that I've used previously, I said I saw my task as that of helping shape the standards of sense and sensibility in society.
All right, that's a very good way to put it. You also had some experiences in The Guardian, especially during the June 12 crisis, and you wrote a series of articles, Diary of a Debacle, and so on. Can you walk us through what was going on in your mind while you were, writing that series for history?
We are deeply skeptical about the election and the transition program of Babangida. And even the most skeptical among us, the belief was that the worst we thought was that the election would not hold. And once the election was held, we rested easy that the worst is over. Not even the most cynical or skeptical among us thought that the election could be annulled. When the electoral decree said you could not challenge the election, you could not stop it, you could not countermand it in any way, and all this happened. And by annulling it, it seemed to me that Babangida had launched us in a deep, deep conflict that was not going to be resolved easily, or in just one column or two columns. And so I got the inspiration to launch the Diary of a Debacle. It seemed to me that this was going to be a long drawn affair. And I think I ended this after 12 months when the interim national government was installed. Even that, as we all know, lasted only 83 miserable days.
What did, well, there were so many forces at work that time. There was the June 12 for the June 12 agitators. There were the collaborators within the political society. There were military forces that were against the annulment. And then there was the establishment. Now, what did you think that period said about our evolution as a country at that period?
It deepened what has been a problem of Nigeria's existence, the absence of anything resembling a national consensus on even the most fundamental issues. We could not define a value system. It came to a point where, nothing was right or wrong. It was right if you could get away with it. It was wrong if you couldn't get away with it. There are objective definitions of right and wrong. I think we can formulate objective definitions of what was wrong and right. But in Nigeria, the lines seem to have been erased. And if you could get away with it, it was right. If you couldn't, it was wrong. And this was a quandary for some of us. And we just said, well, since that we don't have this kind of consensus, be true to yourself. Just be true to yourself. Do whatever your conscience or your value system tells you to do, and be sure you can defend it to the best of your ability. That was the way I learned to navigate the system.
It was a period that called for principle with very dire consequences. You were able to confront it not only as a writer, but also as a person. Can you let us know some of those things you had to battle with that eventually led you to drop your association with The Guardian at that time?
Working with The Guardian was a delight. In fact, I regard my period at The Guardian as the most productive period of my life. Going to work was a delight. You look forward to going to work. Even on a Sunday, it got to a point when my wife said, listen, on a Sunday, when you should stay home, eat a good lunch, and spend quality time with your family, you are looking forward to going to work, there must be something in that workplace beyond editorial writing. and I said, there's nothing else besides editorial writing. Please feel free to come one day and see for yourself. And you don't even have to give me any notice. Just drop in, And without letting me know, she took me at my word and dropped in one day.
Really?
Yes. And she found to her amazement that I was not the only person there. Strictly speaking, on Sundays, I was the only one required to be around to fix the editorial page for Monday and Tuesday. But even those who are not around were in their studios, working at one thing or another. So she knew from then on that there was only editorial work was involved in my going to work on Sundays. So, and then after June 12th, and the annulment crisis, and going to work at The Guardian was almost like going to war, because the consensus that had held the editorial board together seemed to be dissolving. Alex Ibrum had joined the government, had been co-opted into the government, and we told him at the time that it wasn't because he had any special skills that would help the government, but it was because they wanted to co-opt the Guardian.
The Guardian.
And that he had to resign as publisher of The Guardian and keep his distance. And we will keep on with our editorial work. That was the agreement. But I think they put the pins on Alex and said, listen, you can't be working with us every day, eating and dining with us, and your paper is running rings around us every day. And you say you don't know anything about it. We don't believe you, You must know something about it, and you must do something about it. So he tried to influence the editorial policy by going round and round. He tried to through the back door. I won't go into details, but he tried to undermine the editorial board through the ring door. And we found that once suddenly settled editorial policies, we found we were debating issues of settled editorial policy, including, I must say, the death penalty. How can a liberal newspaper support the death penalty? We thought we would never have to debate this, but we found ourselves having to debate it, and we said, listen, here's the editorial policy that is a kind of Bible. You can change it, but until you change it, there are certain policies, certain stands you cannot take. And
sacrosanct, yes.
Exactly. We found a few of us holding The Guardian, holding the Guardian's principles, and others trying to undermine the same Guardian principles. Soli Abu and myself and Emeka Izeze were the people who tried most mightily to hold The Guardian to its principles. And going to work was almost like going to war. Very difficult and, joyless. And then came the proscription of The Guardian, which took everybody by surprise. We knew that sooner or later they would have to move, but we didn't know the time would come. We didn't know when the time came. In fact, I used to tell my colleagues, don't leave your vital documents in your drawers,
in the office.
In the office, the night they came, my passport was in my office. Because I was trying to get it visa for a foreign trip, and my driver's license was there and so many other things.
Wow.
So, but they came and the paper was shut, and I think they let it known to Mr. Ibru that if he came and apologized and promised to be of good behavior, they will consider releasing. They will consider reopening the paper. On banning the paper. I wasn't privy to, then they met and decided that was what they were going to do. I wasn't privy to the meetings, but I had heard that that was what they were going to do, you know, and they had made up my mind that there was no way I was going to be a part of it, because our paper had always maintained that the bedrock principle of democracy is the rule of law.
Yes.
If we had committed any offense, charge us to court. We will come and we will defend ourselves to the best of our ability. But to go and apologize for offenses that we are not aware of, please count me out of it. I didn't go. They returned. The paper was unbanned to everybody's delight, including mine. But I said, you know, having declined to participate in that mission to Abuja that secured the release, I could not in good conscience return to the paper to work, to profit from the labors of others, labors I declined to contribute to, and that I resigned my appointment. That was it.
Soli Abu said, he told the audience at the colloquium an anecdote that somebody called him and said, look, the school fees have now gone up. A way of trying to anticipate his desire to resign, you know, and to know that there was a broader bread and butter aspect to life that had consequences from what actions you would take by detaching from the paper. You had your own problems to solve too at home, including your housing situation.
I had my own problems to solve. We were living in guardian quarters. We had no. I didn't even have a plot of land to my name, much less any accommodation. But I thank God for my family. I'll tell you a story. One day, we were holding meetings of the editorial board at the Guardian, and somebody called me and said I had a call from Abuja. And I went to take the call, and the fellow said, oh, they were coming to Lagos, that Abacha was anxious to put, they wanted to form a government quickly, and that my name had come up, and that they were on their way to Lagos. I'll keep names out of it now. They were on their way to Lagos. Could we meet at a certain place so as to hold discussions, because they want to be able to make an announcement very quickly. I said, not so fast, please. Help me thank them for considering me. I am not interested at this time. He said, what? Oga, people don't behave like that. Even if you are not interested, you don't say it like that. You give them the impression that we gave it thoughtful consideration and that kind of thing. Otherwise, they will never call you again. Don't you even want to discuss it with your family before you decide? I said, take it that I'm speaking for my family. I got home that day, and at dinner, my wife was asking, how did your day go? And the matter came up. I said, well, I got this call, and they said if I was willing to play a part in the government. She just sat upright. She listened patiently. When I finished, she just said, what made them think you are their kind of person? Yeah. What made them think you are their kind of person? And she changed the topic. As far as she was concerned, it was a non-issue, and the matter never came up. Yes, I was insulated from that kind of family pressure, and I'm deeply grateful, because what if they had gone around and told my wife and said, listen, don't you guys, your husband is the only one standing between you and the good life. Why don't you talk to him? And exactly, but that never happened. And even if they had done, she would still have stood her ground. Yes. So I'm deeply grateful for that. And my children too are willing to put up with the loss of a lifestyle that they had taken for granted previously.
Granted, yeah.
Yes, they took it cheerfully, and so I was insulated from that kind of pressure. Yes. It also helped.
But then eventually.
Yes. It also helped that, in fact, when I was resigning from the Guardian, some of my colleagues said, oh, my senior, the colleagues on the same line, the executive line, they said, oh, they wish they could do the same thing. I said, no, I don't hold it against you. I have alternatives that some of you don't have. So don't have, All I need is dust off my diplomas and find my way outside the country. I'll get a job. Some of you don't have that kind of opportunity. So please,
anywhere else to go.
Do not judge yourself harshly that you are not doing what I am able to do. So that was what happened. Those alternatives, my having alternatives, helped mightily. Yes.
I met a governor once who told me that anytime he read your column, he always learned a new word. I met a governor who told me that. And now you say you are dropping the column. Tell us why. Because many people will still have a hard time understanding. Although you've done that in your last column, preface to the valedictory, but we would like to get some reason.
Sam, you should have told the governor to send me a check for every new word that he learned from my column.
Yes, for every word, yes. We'll abstract every word.
You should have sent me a check, in hard currency,
In hard currency, yes.
For every new word that he learned
from yes.
Yeah. But yes, I've been writing a column on and off now for almost 4 decades. And lately, it has become harder and harder to write because of what I call the pathologies of superannuation, which is a fancy way of saying, because of the aches and pains of aging.
Aging.
Aging. It takes a toll. It takes a toll whether you are standing up or sitting down or lying down. Sometimes there's no comfortable position, to take, and yet you want the column to retain its spark and its sparkle, and when this becomes more and more difficult, you feel that the more honorable thing to do is to give it up rather than cling to it. As they say, quit when the ovation is loudest.
I want you to look at the column writing in the past 4 decades as you've been writing, and try to track how it has evolved. Do you think there's a decline, or do you think it's just different?
Let me talk first in terms of structure. Before, this was something that was thought to be the business of professional journalists only. People engage in the media, but because of the renaissance that took place on the eve of the Second Republic, the reorganization of the Daily Times, the injection of people like Stanley McCable and Patrick Daly Cole, who reorganized and reshaped the Daily Times, opened it up for university people, for the entry of public intellectuals. So it was no longer a business for people engaging strictly in the media. They opened it up to all kinds of people with voices that needed to be heard. So structurally, column writing has become has grown, has matured, has become a better platform for
a variegated feast.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is an interview we just had with Professor Olatunji Dare, who is a scholar, columnist, university teacher, and many more. Thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you very much, Sam. And thank you, TVC, for having me. Thank you very much.